Hey gang, in this video I want to talk a little bit about relative frequency histograms. And so here you can see I've got some Green Bay Packer data, and we're going to take a look at this. This is kind of the end result. For right now, I'm just going to delete these, and we're going to, I'm going to go through that again in a little bit. First, I just want to talk a little bit about relative frequency histograms. We've looked at histograms before. Relative frequency histograms is where the y-axis is going to be measured in percentages, which are relative frequencies, instead of counts. So instead of the y-axis telling us this is how many we have, it's going to say this is what percentage of our individuals fit in each of these categories. And the reason we might want to make a relative frequency histogram is because it makes it easier to determine what percentage of values are at or below a specific value, which is going to kind of lead into percentiles down the road. So let's go ahead and take a look at some relative frequency histograms here. So here I've got data on the Packers, age of all the players, weight of all the players, and we're going to look at some relative frequency histograms here. So to start off, first of all, let's just make a histogram. To remember to make a histogram, all we had to do was just highlight the data that we want. So I'm highlighting this column here, and then we can go a couple different places. One is the Explore button down here. I'm going to do the Insert Chart. You can also use the Chart button up here on the top of the toolbar. Now it's giving me the scatter bar chart initially. I don't want that, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click that, and notice right there near the top says histogram chart. So I'm going to click that. It asked me a few questions that I can use to set up. Setup is good, but I'm going to go to Customize, and I'm going to go to Histogram, and I'm going to change this to be bins of size 1. So now it's counting up how many people are age 20 to 21, 21 to 22, and so on. I'm going to go to Chart Axis and Titles. For my title here, I'm just going to type in histogram of Green Bay Packers player ages. Okay. Oh, whoops, sorry, that was my horizontal axis title. So that should just be player ages. My chart title, histogram of Green Bay Packers player ages. Ages. My vertical axis title, I can change that to number of players, because that's counting up how many total players are within that age group. I could do other stuff with the axes there, but I don't need to. I don't need a legend. Horizontal axes, if I want to change anything on my horizontal axis, I can do that. Maybe I want to change this slant to be 90 degrees. I kind of like that, so I'm going to leave it like that. Vertical axis, we could change things with the vertical axis if we need to. We could do grid lines, but I think I like where we're at right now. So I'm just going to X out of this chart here. I am going to click it and then grab it and drag it off of my data a little bit. So this is a histogram for the ages of the players. Now we can see we've got two players here, Tramon Williams and Aaron Rodgers, who are both 36 years old. If we come over to our part of the histogram that counts from 36 to 37, we can see it says that there are 2 in there. It also says there are 2 in the 35 to 36 because we have Mason Crosby and Mercedes Lewis. The largest one we can see is the 24 to 25-year-old age group with 11. Okay. So that's a histogram of the Packers player ages. What if we wanted to create a relative frequency histogram? Now, Google Sheets doesn't do a great job with this, so it's going to be more like a bar chart, but we'll create a relative frequency table first, and then try to turn that into a kind of a pseudo histogram. So over here, I'm going to type in class, And then here I'm going to type in frequency. And then in M1, I'm going to type in relative frequency. Okay. Our classes, those are going to be the age groups here. So I'm just going to start with 20 and 21. And now if I click with left click and hold it down and highlight both of those, I can grab the bottom right here and I can just drag that down for a while. And I can take it down to 41 if I want. The oldest Packers player is only 36 though, so I'll just take it down to 37. Okay. Now to get the frequency within each age group, what we're going to do is we're going to use a little formula here. Equals frequency. And now it wants the data. Well, our data is over here. So you can go over here and you can click and highlight all of those ages. And then if we scroll back up to the top, we need a comma. And then classes. Well, these are our classes right here. So we're going to highlight those. And then we close the parentheses and we hit enter. And notice, similar to what we looked at with our histogram here, we said there were 2 in the 36 to 37, 2 in the 35 to 36. We can see 2 in the 36 to 37, 2 in the 35 to 36, 11 in the 24 to 25. Sure enough, 24 to 25 has 11. So we've got our frequencies in there. Now we want to calculate the relative frequencies. So the relative frequency is the percentage. So we're going to type in equals, and then we're going to take our frequency here. So we can click in that cell. We want to divide it by the sum of all of these values. So click and hold all those values, or you can type in, for example, here L2 colon L20. Close the parentheses and hit enter. Okay. So it's saying right now our relative frequency is 0. Now if I try and drag that down, I get to divide by 0 at the end here. I get that this one right above it is 100%, 1. That doesn't make any sense. And that's because we didn't use dollar signs in our formula here. Dollar signs help to keep our equation from shifting one of the cells that we're looking at. So here, we always want to divide by the sum of these numbers that we have in column L here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back up to this formula at the top, and we're going to put a dollar sign in between the L and the 2 and a dollar sign in between the L and the 20, just in our sum part of the formula. And then hit enter, and then we're going to drag that back down again. And now you can see those numbers look more reasonable. Okay? If we click on any one of these in particular, so for 23, notice it says L5. L5 is 7, divided by the sum of L2 to L20. So notice that sum equation didn't change. It's still taking the sum of those values there. So now we have the relative frequency for each of these age groups. We might want to turn those into percentages, so we can just come up here, highlight them all, come up here to the toolbar and click Format as Percent. And now they're all in percentages. We know that percentages should add up to 100%. And if I look down here at the bottom of my screen, I can see it says sum of 100%. Okay. So we've got a relative frequency table now. Now, if we want to try to create a relative frequency histogram, what we're going to do is we're going to click and highlight the class, and then I'm going to push and hold the Control key and then highlight the relative frequencies, and then I can let go. So now we've got these two columns highlighted. I'm going to go back to my chart. I'm going to insert a chart, and it's giving me this line graph here. I don't want that, so I'm going to click to customize, and excuse me, go back to setup, and I don't want the line chart. So I'm going to change that chart type, and I'm going to change it to this column chart. Okay. Now, I could come down here and try this histogram. Let's see what happens if I do. So the histogram is trying to break it down into these percentages here, kind of. And that's not what we want. So unfortunately, we have to choose this column chart. And now you can see that this column chart, and I'm not going to update the titles on this one, but you can see this column chart, if I grab this and I drag this down, and we compare it to the chart up above, okay, they're very similar. You can see the 36, the 35, okay, the 33, all the heights of these are basically the same. The bars aren't touching like they should in a histogram, but the visual aspect here is still the same. But you can see on the y-axis this time we have percentages instead of counts. And what that's going to help us with, if I want to know what percentage of players are under the age of 24, well, before that, I might have had to count up, okay, 22 and 23. We've got 11 total, 4 in this group, 7 in this group. That's 11 total. And then I would have to divide it by the total number of players that I have. But here, I could just take my 6.67% and my 11.67% and add those together. And that tells me the percentage of players that are under the age of 24. So a relative frequency histogram is a good way to quickly be able to find out what percentage of individuals are at or below a particular value within your data set. So we've got histograms, we have relative frequency histograms. We're going to use these in a couple of other videos to talk about normal distributions and to talk about percentiles. So we'll be using this data a little bit more as well. Thank you.